Marcus Jansen is often described as an urban expressionist, a painter whose canvases convert the intensity of city experience, conflict, abandonment, spectacle into a volatile pictorial language. His biography, born in Manhattan, raised in the South Bronx and Queens, later living between the Bronx and Florida, and his military service as a young adult are persistent reference points for critics and curators. These threads, street formation, military memory, and institutional reception, help explain why his work cares so visibly about ruins, crowds, and infrastructural precarity. By 2019, Jansen had established a working studio presence in the Bronx. Public documentation of his Bronx studio's development in late 2019 indicates an intensification of production and engagement with the borough as a lived and working site, less as an exotic backdrop than as material and subject. The South Bronx studio is therefore not simply the place where canvases were painted. It is a discursive and material node that channels local histories of disinvestment, community resilience, and the afterlives of industrial decline into Jansen's painterly choices. The Tent City works, Jansen's own posts refer to individual pieces such as Tent City #7 2019, are formally and thematically bound up with images of temporary shelters, encampments, and makeshift dwellingscapes, a subject that in 2019 had acquired multiple resonances: rising homelessness in U.S. cities, visible refugee crises globally, and the broader circulation of Tent City as a symbol of emergency housing and displacement. Jansen's engagement with this motif makes it simultaneously literal, depictions or evocations of clustered tents and shacks, and allegorical, a shorthand for dispossession and failed civic protection. Marcus Jansen's Tent City paintings of 2019 are best understood as products of a specific, materially and socially inflected studio practice grounded in the South Bronx. Formal strategies, layering, graffiti-derived mark-making, compressed figuration work together with subject matter, encampments, displacement, to produce a body of work that is at once locally rooted and globally resonant. The studio in the South Bronx is not an incidental location, but a generative environment, a node where personal history, urban materials, and socio-political urgency coalesce into canvases that ask viewers to recognize the human fallout of infrastructural failure. Continued scholarly work should pair close formal analysis with archival and community-based research to fully recover the political and ethical dimensions of these paintings. Jansen's work reached an expanded institutional audience, gallery shows in Europe, and traveling museum exhibitions in the U.S., which complicates readings of Tent City as purely local testimony. The translation of these works into gallery and museum contexts raises several critical questions. How does the market and museum frame affect the political urgency of paintings about dispossession? Do gallery spectatorship conditions domesticate the immediacy of tent encampments? Or can exhibition contexts amplify their civic meanings? Writers and curators have tended to emphasize Jansen's dual identity as a product of the South Bronx and as an internationally circulating artist. Institutional texts highlight his use of structures of power as a theme and often point to the painter's visual debt to both street tradition and modernist gestures. This dual framing opens the paintings to both critical readings as social critique and marketization as collectible works, a tension that is important for scholars to track.